At mealtimes, for so many parents, the struggle is real. You put the effort into a great meal, one you know will nourish your family with healthy foods, but the whole time you're making it, you're haunted by one single question: will the kids eat it?
For many families, picky eating can turn the dinner table into a battleground filled with stress, frustration, negotiation, and sometimes even guilt. Is it just a phase? Is it sensory, behavioral? Are parents doing something wrong?
Today, we're digging deeper into what's really going on behind picky eating and why it's often much more complex than simply having a picky child.
This is Too Many Cooks in the Kitchen, where food, family, health, and culture collide.
Joining us today is Lena Livinsky, a holistic feeding specialist and pediatric speech pathologist who helps families decode picky eating at the root. Through her work, she helps parents better understand the connection between food and child development so mealtimes can become less stressful and more connected.
Whether you're raising a toddler surviving on crackers and fruit snacks, a child with sensory sensitivities, or you simply want to build a healthier relationship with food in your home, this conversation is for you. So pull up a seat to the table because today we're talking all things picky eating.
Lena, welcome to the show.
We're super excited to have you here with us, Lena. Thank you so much for joining us for today's conversation.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm excited too.
Nice. So you are our first guest, so we really appreciate you
Oh, that's exciting.
joining us for this because we originally just had it, just the two of us, but realized that we should really branch out and get other people in the conversation.
Okay, well, fun. Yes.
So there's a question that we want to ask each one of our guests moving forward. And so that is, what is your most powerful memory around food and how did that impact your path in life?
That's a really good question. And there is one that comes up for me quite often, looking back at my experiences with food as a kid. And that was when I was visiting my grandfather. I'm originally from Poland. So actually, my grandfather's brother, but I thought of him as my own grandpa. But he lived in a countryside. So every time we went to visit, they had like incredible spreads of food and all these delicious things that were made.
Yeah.
And he had honey from his own bees and,
Mhm.
and fresh meats and cheeses and fruits and veggies. It was amazing, right? And I wasn't really picky as a kiddo, but there were some things where I wasn't really willing to try. I remember one day we were there sitting and there was this incredible spread on the table and he brought out this little jar of something and it was brown and slimy. And I was like, oh my God, this is like, I'm not eating that for sure. But I didn't say that because it was my grandpa and not my parents. If it was my parents, they probably would have been like, that's not happening. But because of where I was and who I was with, and I was feeling very grounded and excited because I was out in the countryside with them. And it was just a really good day. So once they opened it up, it turned out to be mushrooms and vinegar. To that point, I was like, absolutely, this is not something that I ate. I hated it. It was like something I never touched on the table. But he just gave me a little nudge and I was like, well, okay. Well, because of the circumstances, let's give it a try. And I absolutely loved it. I loved it. And up to this day, mushrooms are some of my favorite foods. It's incredible how much the environment around us shapes how like memories around food and our experiences around food. So because I think it was such a lovely day with people I loved, I mean, it made something so scary and unappealing to me become something that I really enjoyed. So that's one of my earliest memories around food.
That is certainly something I think Lauren most definitely, especially in the mushroom realm, could definitely get
Definitely.
around because she has a memory very somewhat similar with mushrooms and
Mm.
like, oh, I don't like them. In our
Yeah.
case, yep. Previous episode we had kind of talked about, and we do this kind of recipe challenge with different type of food each week. At the end of the episode, we have our little battle that we do around this food thing. And this one happened to be the mushroom one.
Oh.
And kind of disappointing because I sent her only half a recipe or a part of the thing. And she made it, and it was pretty depressing, right,
It
Lauren?
was very sad. And this is a recipe that my mom, she's made for years and years, and she made it when I was a child, and she
Oh.
owned her own restaurant. And I tried it, way back then, and it was the first time I realized that mushrooms were actually really delicious,
Yes.
and it
They
made me
tend to
like
be
mushrooms.
Yeah, they tend to be something kids figure out or, like, people figure
Yeah.
out later in life. It's not
Yeah.
I think the texture can be very off-putting when you're young, so you need to have a bit of a more mature palate to start to like them, but they're incredible, and that
Yeah.
recipe sounds amazing.
It was a
It's
bisque,
very
so
good.
maybe the texture thing was the reason why she didn't have to deal with the texture
Yeah, it
later
was
down
just
the
all
table.
flavor because it was all pureed to be
That
smooth.
Yeah.
Um, I think it was like a good way to kind of dip your toe into something different as opposed to like jumping all the way into the pool
Yeah.
of
Yeah,
mushrooms.
totally. Take the texture out of it. That helps because I feel like texture is one of the most off-putting things to some
Mm,
people if they're kind of sensitive to that. So I think when you take that element out, it really helps to be a little bit more adventurous with food.
yeah. What do you think with children that you've worked with? What are some of the biggest foods that children have aversions to that they just like will not touch with a 10-foot
Yeah.
pole?
It depends really on the child, but common ones are usually vegetables. I mean, typically, kids are a little bit more willing to go with fruits just because they're
Mm,
sweeter versus vegetables. But some kids, like, if they have chewing issues or if they have textural sensory issues,
mhm,
they can even sometimes refuse meats and things that are just things you really have to chew. So it,
mhm,
it really depends on the child.
mhm,
I feel like a lot of it is because of their skills, like whatever they're feeling comfortable that they can do, or sensory aversions play a big role
mhm,
here too. So if there is like a specific flavor profile or even smell, sometimes visually kids have a hard time looking at
mm.
things that can be off-putting. So it really depends on what's going on underneath. But I would say probably number one thing I hear is vegetables.
Is
Is
there like a
that
particular vegetable that is most often villainized, or is it just like the whole category?
It's the whole category. I think it's, like, some kids will do one versus another,
Mm,
but, like, I've worked with many different kids, so I think it's, again, like, a skill-based thing and flavor thing. So, with vegetables, it could be any one of them because
mm,
it could be like a tomato versus broccoli, and broccoli
yeah.
requires more skills to chew depending how it's prepared. Tomatoes
Mm,
softer, but sometimes even these softer foods can be off-putting. Like my
yeah.
son, he has picky tendencies, so he will not touch mashed potatoes, but those are easy to eat, right? But the
Yeah.
texture is off-putting, but he will eat other types of potatoes. So I think it really depends very much on the child.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Most children love mashed potato. I like at least as far as I've experienced, you
Yeah.
know. And
yeah, I'm
tomatoes, I feel like
zero.
are one of those foods that can be weird for a lot of people
Yes.
texturally also.
There's a
I
lot
think
of
the
elements there.
acidity too, because like a lot
Yeah.
it's just like tomato sauce seems to be kind of
Mhm.
one of those pretty standard, like, if you have someone who's like, "Oh," and they'll say, "Oh, I don't like tomatoes. I don't eat tomatoes." It's like,
Yes.
"Oh,
Yes,
that's
But
sad."
tomato
some people will eat tomato sauce because, like, it's cooked, like, the textural part of it's just kind of cooked out, and it's just it's not like the raw, like, sliminess that a tomato has. Like, I
yes.
have a client who he won't touch a raw tomato, and this is an older gentleman also. He hates raw tomatoes, but he'll eat them if they're cooked, like, in a soup or a sauce or something like that.
Yeah, yeah. I really do think that that texture component plays a huge role for people, like,
Mm,
you take that out, and they can handle, the flavor, and they can
mm,
handle the smell and the look of it, but it's that the texture. The texture, it can be a lot for some people.
Yeah, I'm generally not picky on most things, but I can tell you that there's 2 things that I've actually gagged on, and
mm,
one of them, when I was a kid, my mom loved Weetabix, which I don't
Mm,
even know if they still sell them, but it was like shredded wheat kind of a thing. It was in a brick, and you put it in a bowl, and you put the water on, like or the milk on like a cereal, but instantly turned into this nasty mush. So it was like milk
Ugh.
cold slime mush. I mean, no crunch at all. And I just remember just like, couldn't do it. And then later on as an adult, I was newly being introduced to sushi. And so I didn't really know. So I let the other person like, hey, you order for me. And they ordered sea urchin.
Me.
I
This is
put it
very
in my mouth and instantly had a gag reflex. But of course, it was a date and I'm new on like eating this and I don't want to embarrass myself or definitely spit it out. It was all I could do to just kind of swallow that and hope that it wasn't coming back up. It
Oh
was
boy.
not good. Like, nope, sea urchins on the menu. That sucker's not getting ordered by me. But I'm
Yeah.
generally like not a picky person. Although when I was a kid, there was one dish I couldn't stand, and that was this omelet my mother would make for dinner. It was called the Western omelet, and it had peppers and onion in it. And I don't mind onion and peppers, but something about cooked green peppers, just the slimy, and it has like I don't know. I'll take a red cooked pepper all day. I like that flavor's fine, but green cooked peppers just don't have a good flavor. And it was one of those that like, we had to eat it.
Yes.
And so I could tell you that we go to a restaurant for breakfast, omelets would be the last thing that I'm going to order. And it's probably linked to that, like
Yeah.
being forced to eat that.
Yeah. That
Just-
happens to, I feel like a lot of people as they grow up, they have these experiences with foods and then they form these food stories in their mind about what they like, what they don't like, how food makes them feel. And that guides their choices going forward. It's like you don't forget these experiences because food is very invasive. Like you have to put it in your mouth. Like it's a sensational experience. So it kind of stays with you for a long time.
So can you rewrite those stories though? So let's say like, because one of the things is kids have a tendency, or at least some kids do, to change from day to day. Like one day they like it and the next day they won't touch it with a 10-foot pole.
Mm-hmm.
And so you feel like you won a battle. Like, yes, I got this kid to eat this thing. And then all of a sudden, for some bizarre reason, they decide, no, I don't like to eat that anymore.
So this is like a personal kind of question for me and my career. I'm a private chef and I work for a family and they have 3 young boys. The youngest one he's a very adventurous eater and he loves food. And we can get into it a little bit more later. He just one day he'll love something and then the next day he's like, "Oh, I don't like that thing." And then he won't eat it. And it's like it's so difficult and frustrating at times because, I want them to enjoy all the food that I make. So, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. How old is he?
He's 7.
Okay.
So, not like so young that he doesn't understand. Like, he really understands a lot about food and is super interested in learning, but definitely, like, his palate is still, changing a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, with picky eating, it can be complicated or simple,
Mm.
but I love to look at the child very holistically. So I zoom out and look at different elements to see what could be the reason for some of these picky tendencies. Because when you have picky tendencies, that is just a symptom of something else happening in your body, right? In a developing body. So I like to look at any type of medical underlying issues. So is he constipated? Is he saying no on the days when he's having constipation issues? Does he have reflux? Does he have some kind of acidity going on, maybe imbalance where it's making his tummy ache sometimes after he eats? So maybe one day he'll love it, another day he won't because something is causing him to feel uncomfortable. And maybe he's just not versing that, right? Is there anything else going on medically? Maybe.
So he had summer. We were traveling out of the country at like one of their other properties. But their home base is here in Florida where I live. And he started having like an esophageal issue where it was constricting. And so when that happened, he didn't want to eat anything, which is totally
Yeah.
understandable. So we put him on a completely liquid diet. And then once the inflammation went down and he was able to like swallow again, he started eating more normally and he was kind of back to his normal self for the most part. But some foods like that he loved before, he won't necessarily like he has some issues with now, like steak. He's kind of weird about it, like certain parts of the steak that he feels like are, I guess, maybe more chewy. He'll like try to like cut that part off or like pick that part, like the outside, the cooked part. Like he only will want like the tender meat on the
Mhm.
inside.
Yeah.
And it must have something to do with like the esophageal issue where I think he choked once or twice when it was really constricted. And so I think there's a fear there now
Mhm.
with certain foods where like now he's okay and he can eat them, but because of that fear, he doesn't want to eat them.
Yes.
So
Yeah,
is
kids
there a
are very
way to, like, make him feel safer with the foods that he's afraid of?
Yeah, definitely. So there is many different things that I like to do with kids once we look at that medical side of things and looking at their microbiome, making sure that there's nothing else causing them issues, and making sure also because with steak we need to have really good oral motor skills to break
Mhm,
it down. We have to be able to chew. That's like really tough consistency sometimes. So I would
mhm,
look into that as well, making sure that he has the skills to break it down. Does he have like think about like is he struggling with other consistencies that are a little bit harder? Like, is he eating longer than his siblings? Does he take a little bit longer? Is he fatiguing with it? So there's different things to look at structurally as well to make sure everything is okay there. And then, once we kind of take care of that area where make sure he can chew, everything's okay, he can swallow safely, he's not in pain, right? Because all
mhm,
these things will affect how he eats.
mhm,
Once that's taken care of, then you can actually start to do some food exploration in a way that's like, okay, so we're going to make this more fun. Maybe today we're going to explore a meal from this country, like a meal from this country, whatever it is that speaks to him, that's exciting. And maybe before we even get to these meals that would be difficult for him to have, or, we could do something that just takes him back to maybe even the grocery store, just exploring food in a way that's fun for him to have kind of the first hand in it and
mhm,
an opportunity to also explore in a way that where he doesn't even have to eat it yet, just to
mm,
build that confidence with food first. So maybe you guys talk about the steak, maybe you talk about the
mhm,
meat, maybe you talk about whatever it is he's having a hard time with. And then also setting some boundaries. I really do think that setting boundaries for kids is important. So, this is what we're doing today. This is what we're having. You're expected to sit here for 20 minutes and have a meal with us versus get up and watch TV or make yourself something else. That can be very helpful. Kids need boundaries, but
mm,
once they're ready for it, right? Because if we are in pain, if we can't chew and we're setting these boundaries, there is a mismatch. So we want to make sure all these other areas are really everything's working there, or he's getting better, he's getting stronger, so we can start to build skill versus like force him to eat and 10-ounce steak where it's difficult for him. So we have to kind of look at the child to see what's going on there.
yeah, that makes a lot of sense,
Good.
and boundaries, I think, are really
Mhm.
good.
Yeah.
They do need a lot of boundaries.
Kids love like
Mhm.
tapas style dinners too, and parents love it too
Mm,
because then you decide what's on the table, so
mm,
you have control over that, but they can have control of their plate. So
mhm.
it's like a simple thing where you don't pre-make his plate and he's still able to have some choices, always have like a safe food there, but also something to explore. Um, I think that helps.
So this brings up a question for me, having been divorced and then married someone who they had a different way around the child and dinner,
Mhm.
and kind of, and that child did not eat any vegetables at all, or she does not. It very rare. I'm like, what? You don't eat any vegetables? And of course, I'm just like, no, you have to eat something. Like we got to find something. And corn, not a vegetable. I mean, yeah, it is, but like something other than corn. Now, she
Technically,
would
it's
eat
a
a raw
grain.
carrot. And the crazy thing is she would eat a whole can of black beans, unseasoned, rinsed. So like, I knew it wasn't like a intense flavor thing or like a weird, because like, I don't know any child who would just sit down and chow down on a whole thing of black beans and just eat
Mhm.
them. Like that's kind of like, okay, that's if you can eat that, you should be able to eat these other things. I think it was that she didn't like the color green, but
Could be.
so in my mind, it's like, how does someone who's now I'm a stepmom, how do you navigate that without creating this like tug of war or battle between, well, her like birth mom lets her do this, and then in our house,
Mhm.
you need to eat this, and then it's like this struggle now between my husband, her dad, and I, like kind of, I
Mhm.
believe one thing, and he's just kind of like he didn't want the battle,
Yeah.
so he was just like whatever. But in my mind, it's mealtime also has to bring nourishment, and it can't be
Yeah.
just, well, you eat none of that and then you just go and eat a bag of Twizzlers afterwards. It's just,
Yeah.
so I'm not like, what are some tips on being able to navigate something like that? Because I'm likely there's listeners who have a similar situation.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's always hard when family dynamics are involved and there's many more people they need to be mindful of. I do think, that's difficult. But how old is she?
Well, at this point it was like 11, 12
Okay.
when we met. Now she's an adult and she's grown up, and
Yeah.
she does tend to get more colds because she doesn't eat as many vegetables, but eats more than what she used to.
Okay. Yeah.
Mm.
Sometimes as kids
Yeah.
grow up socially, they start to be mindful of what's happening at a table around their friends and at school, and
Mhm.
they go out to dinner and there's questions. So they're more sometimes willing to be adventurous outside of that family dinner table. But I really do think that getting to the source is always kind of the first thing that we should do because there's always a reason. Why?
Mm.
Why is she hating the vegetables so much? What is it? Is it again oral motor skills? Is she not able to break them down? Is it such a bad sensory experience for her where she just hates different textures? Because the thing with vegetables and fruits that's kind of unique is that they tend to have different flavors and textures. Like one tomato doesn't taste
Mm.
the same as another tomato, and
Mm.
one pepper can taste different than another. One blueberry is different than another, and it can be
Mm.
in the same pack. And sometimes that variability is hard for people to handle. So I do say, I love to look at the reason because if we
Mhm.
know the reason and if we can address it, whether it's nutritional deficiency that's causing this, because with picky eaters, oftentimes, or the most common deficiencies are around, for example, zinc. Zinc,
Mm.
if you are deficient in zinc, then you can struggle with some sensory issues. There's also vitamin A, there's omegas, there's different ones as well that can be affecting magnesium, iron, things like that.
Mhm.
I mean, iron will influence your flavor profiles too. So if she
Mm.
was struggling in any of these areas, then maybe that's what was bringing on so many, the kind of refusal behaviors around these types of foods.
Mm.
That could be something, right?
Mhm.
Or gut microbiome issues, if there's any type of overgrowths or dysbiosis, leaky gut, things like
Mhm.
that, that can also influence our appetite signals. It can influence our cravings. It can influence a lot of our choices around the table. So I would look, if it was me, I would
Mhm.
probably start exploring there first, asking some questions, and the parents love her. So there's something out of ordinary where we're like, well, she's really low in these vitamins, or she's really low in this, or her gut it needs a lot of help right now. So maybe discussing the subject in that
Yeah.
matter where we're just working on her physical
Mhm.
health and then later worrying about the vegetable because there's definitely a reason. It's never just, I just don't eat those. There's always a reason.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, and also like a totally different household too of like what they accept as food.
Yeah.
Like frozen pancakes, the little mini frozen pancakes. Like
Yeah.
that's so processed. It's terrible for you. And
Mhm.
I'm like, what? No, I'm making real pinkies. I can make them smaller, but like the Lunchables or
Oh, yeah.
all of that, the very commercialized food is what she had in her mom's house compared to what we would have in our house. Like I'm
Right.
not buying Eggo waffles.
My
Yeah, no,
mom does not
absolutely.
buy packaged foods.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
Well,
no.
also,
I'll make and it'll taste even better.
for sure.
But like the whole thing is like, oh, you guys eat weird. So she got into the habit when she was able to drive herself and all of that. She would just eat before she came to visit. And then it
Oh.
was only if she stayed over the night, then she'd have to but then it was she would prepare her own or just wouldn't. But she loves steak. She'll eat mashed potatoes and everything. So I kind of tried to find ways to make like stir fries or something where it was such an effort to have to pick out, although she was committed to doing the
Oh,
effort
she'll do it.
as
Yeah.
well. But I would have to say, like, I had experience with that with, my oldest
Mhm.
daughter, super picky, super. Only vegetables she
There
would
was
eat was
only
green
about
beans.
5 foods.
Yeah.
Amelia would only eat 5 foods as a child, basically.
Pretty much,
Yeah.
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 Chicken nuggets, like, it could be all brown.
goal.
Pasta, no sauce, just butter.
Mhm.
Green beans. She would
And
eat
green beans was the one vegetable she would eat. I think she would eat corn too, but that was it.
Yeah.
And I made the mistake early on as for young parent of kind of thinking that Gerber had it all handled and that I could just buy all this stuff like that. And it trained, I think, her palate to like that kind of very commercialized flavor. And so when I tried to kind of clean the diet up and give her lots of other things, for sure it was some sensory stuff. Some of it was kind of just like stubbornness around her not wanting to broaden things that she wanted to eat. Because like at one point we had gotten some boneless pork chops and I was not the person who purchased these. And he's like, how are you going to get her to eat them? I'm breading these suckers, sticking them in the oven, and I'm calling them chicken fingers, chicken nuggets. She ate them. She said, these are the best chicken nuggets I've ever eaten.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's like you named it the thing that looks similar. Then I
The same
remember.
thing.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
remember joking, going, well, next week we're having chicken ribs. Because I was thinking, well, we're onto something. And then she wouldn't try strawberries or watermelon.
Mhm.
Would not
Yeah.
at all.
There is strawberries, again, like every single one of them has a different texture, kind of, and flavor. I mean,
Yeah.
I just went to a strawberry farm yesterday because I really do believe in eating seasonally. I
yeah.
do think that, the strawberry I'm going to have today from a local farm that's organic, it's not the same I'm going to buy organic from Driscoll in December. It's very different.
Yeah, they can't get that flavor. It's like sunshine, the flavor of sunshine.
Yeah. No, but even like nutrient wise and everything, mineral wise, it's just so much richer. But like every single strawberry was so different because literally I was having a bowl of them yesterday and I was like, And I'm noticing these things because my son also has a hard time eating them still. So he tried few because he knows like we just try. We don't have to eat it. We're exploring. He has like a rich enough diet where it's okay for me if he doesn't eat everything. But I could tell. So I would try them first to make sure, okay, this is a sweet one versus a sour one. Then I would give it to him, right? Because I feel like, things like that can be very off-putting for kids. And then watermelon, it's very juicy. So some kids can't handle that texture because it's just, even though it's delicious, and watermelon is safer in terms of flavor, I feel like it tastes the same across the whole fruit, but it's like the juicy part and the seeds. Right? If there's
And the
seeds
texture
there,
too.
and they get
Sometimes
that.
the texture, right? You can have that like grainy-ish
Yes,
kind of
yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. So,
which can be off-putting. But the funny thing is we were at we had like a kind of like a neighborhood block party around 4th of July. And I had strawberry and I had watermelon, I had all these things. And there were a boatload of children around. And they were eating them. And I remember her coming up to me and going, Mom, tried a strawberry and I liked it. Yes, this is what I've been trying to tell you. They're good. So it was really, that's weird. It's new. And I don't want to.
And also, I mean, I was eating strawberries, at the time where Amelia was not. I was eating them. I was making myself sick on strawberries because I would eat so many of them. So it's not like she didn't see that, I mean, I
Yeah.
guess I was her little sister, so
Well,
she's
that's
like,
the
she
thing.
doesn't, yeah.
Our friends influence us differently than our
Yeah,
family does, for sure.
yeah,
There's a dynamic difference there, I would say.
yeah.
Yeah.
Have you ever experienced sugar addiction in children to where, like,
Oh.
they only wanna eat, like, sweet foods and kind of,
Mhm.
like, will reject anything that's
Mhm.
or, like a meal, like a savory entree is just, like, picked out. So, for example, the same little boy that I work for, he loves sweets, just like and I mean, all kids love sweets, and he loves fruit too, he eats tons of fruit,
Mhm.
but I find sometimes I get a little frustrated because just spent the last 6 hours preparing a dinner and for him to only eat, like, 3 bites or something, and I know it's good, like, his brothers have eaten it, his parents are eating it, like, they all thought it
Yeah.
was delicious, and he'll eat just a little bit, and then immediately after, he'll be like, "Okay, like, I'm ready for dessert," and
Yes.
then
The rule.
he may not necessarily get dessert because he didn't eat his dinner, but I'm still cleaning up the kitchen, and as I'm cleaning up the kitchen, he'll come back and, like, sneaks, like, a handful of strawberries or, like, a handful of, like, some cut up mango. It's very frustrating for me because I've just created, a nutrient-dense meal with protein and vegetable and, like, things he needs, and yes, fruit is beneficial for you, but it doesn't have everything you need, so
Yeah. Well, this really makes me think of gut dysbiosis
Mhm,
because we don't actually eat our food. The bacteria in
mhm,
our gut digests our foods, right? And whether we can absorb the nutrients from it or not, that's also dependent on the state of our body. But all these intense cravings and preferences for sweet, it's typically the bad guys in your gut saying like, no, 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 like I need to thrive, I need to survive, so I need more sugar. That's what they eat,
mhm.
right? They eat
Yep,
starches,
yep.
they eat sugars, and they
Yes,
crave it.
and
Mm.
that's what he loves the most, like, those are the foods that he eats the most of is
Yeah,
fruits, sweets, and then, like, breads and things like that,
yeah,
and proteins. Kind of weird about like I don't know, like he won't ever eat a full portion of a protein. And so,
yeah,
it's been kind of encouraging him to eat those things more.
yeah,
And I think part of it was that like fear, like
yes,
a lot of proteins obviously are more they take a lot more like motor function to
yes,
chew and
to
everything.
break down. For it to be comfortable, right? Because sometimes if you're not breaking it down fully and you're
Mm.
swallowing, there's still not like a mushy enough bolus that can
Yeah.
feel off as well. And that
So,
sensation can be a lot for him because of his experiences and his,
mm.
the esophageal issues.
Yeah. So, obviously, I'm not his parent, like, I
Mhm.
can't take him to the doctor or, like, try
Yeah.
to figure out what's going on in his gut. Like, what would you if you can recommend something that I could do to, like, maybe just because all I could do is really encourage and try to
Encourage,
create
yeah.
meals
So
that
maybe
he'll enjoy, you know?
yeah, right. Is there something you can discuss with the parents, or is it just mostly just kind of
It's not
creating
really
food
like
for him? Yeah.
they're very traditional and conventional, so it's not a conversation that I would really feel comfortable broaching
Got it.
just
Yep.
because I don't think they would be receptive to what I have to say,
Yeah.
so I just kind of observe, and
Yeah.
these are things that I mean, I'm in the kitchen all the time,
Yeah.
It's like
I mean,
I
it's so
see the
lovely you're trying
children's
to
eating
figure this out.
habits, so
Yeah. Well, what I would say is definitely make the protein is the star of the table, right? We
Mhm,
want to make sure he gets enough and that he's going to eat enough. So if it's a lot of steak, maybe he gets the filet mignon or whatever so
mhm,
he can handle. Or maybe you can start making proteins that are a little bit easier to break down.
mhm,
So you want to make sure that because that's going to be easier for him. Maybe it's not going to be as tiring. So whether it's like I don't know, ground meat of some sort, like beef Wellington, whatever it is that he's able to eat. I think beef Wellington is not ground meat, actually, now that I think about it.
it's a
It's a
filet.
filet. Okay,
Yeah,
well,
it's
there you
very
go.
tender.
Yeah, something very tender, easy to break down, meatballs, things like that, that are a
Mm.
little bit easier,
Mhm.
and making sure you cook it in a way that they're kind of like the pieces are breaking off a little bit and they're
Mm.
softer. I wonder if that's gonna help him because
Mm.
if the protein is consistently harder to chew, then maybe that's one of the issues where after 3 bites, he's like, "Ugh, I'm done. Like, I need
Mm.
something soft because this is too much." And then the cravings are also probably contributing to this. And it could be fear and anxiety as well, where,
Mm.
if he's not able to chew it that well and, he has these sensations, he feels his swallows, then that's another thing. It's hard to pinpoint exactly what's going on, but these things are definitely standing out to me. So I would say try to make foods that are kind of easier to eat, easier to digest for him, and see how that changes things,
Mm.
if that influences how much he eats. Because it seems like he doesn't really have issues with eating these types of
Mm-mm.
foods. It's probably just the skill and the
Yeah.
texture and the cravings. Because then mango is easy. Like it's so
Mhm.
soft. Strawberries are easy.
Yeah.
You don't
Mhm.
require as much skill and you can get what you need as well.
Yeah.
So I would say maybe try that.
Okay.
I certainly
Thank you.
like the fact that you kind of brought up the thing. It's like we're not addicted to sugar. It is
Yeah.
the gut
Mm.
microbiome species that are in there, and that is work that was actually proven by a professor at Duke. And I listened to he came to our university to talk about that, and I remember thinking like, aha, the aha moment of they're controlling the behavior and
Yes.
saying, no, no, no. I want what I want to survive. Give me what I want. And then so we know that and that's influencing our behaviors around food and what we
Hmm.
like and don't like. So how do we, even this is not just for adults or children and parents, but also all of us, how do we begin to rebalance the gut in like a kind of a slow, gradual way so
Mhm.
that eventually you balance it to a point where you're not having that voice in your head like, eat the cookie, eat the cookie.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, well, there are many different ways, and there is no one size fits all, I feel like, outside of kind of really working on our environment because it depends. Like, there are a lot of questions around the gut. We want to know whether the child was born through a C-section or vaginally, because that's going to
Mm.
influence what kind of probiotics and what kind of bacteria they have from the get-go. We want to kind of know how good of a microbiome the mom had. I mean, it's rare now for us to have a child born to a mom who hasn't had antibiotics and things that have
Right.
influenced her gut and changed the flora of her gut, right? Because of our environment. So all of that will play a role. Like, I'm going to give you an example. My son, he was born at home. I had a home birth with him. And you would expect him to have all this beautiful gut flora passed down for me, but I was not in a good shape before I got pregnant. I was actually vegan for some time, and that wasn't really good for my body. So I feel like I came into pregnancy already nutritionally depleted, and
Mm.
I wasn't really feeding my bacteria the way I was supposed to. So he was at a disadvantage, even though he was a home birth. But then I was able to pass down some of my birth microbes to him. So that's really important. That we have about
Mhm.
200 of them. And they have so many different functions in our body that are they would have just countless functions that they're responsible for in our body. So when we're missing them, unfortunately, we tend to not to be able to have some of these things happen for us. And I'm just giving you like a broad thing
Right.
because they all responsible for so many different functions. There's about 200 of them. But when we're missing them or when we are not taking care of them, even if we're born with them and we starve them out or we kill them because of our environmental factors, that's going to affect our health. That's when they're not able to protect our gut and we're getting in some of the bad guys and overgrowths as well. But there is more things than just the food that can influence our microbiome. Actually, this is what studies are showing, the thing that influences our microbiome the most is natural light. It influences it more than food. So that's about like 51 to 49% difference, but it's
Interesting.
bigger, right? So whenever I work with my clients and we're working on the gut, we start there. this is how important it is. Getting outside first thing in the morning if we can, or as soon as you wake up within 30 minutes window to get that morning red and infrared rich sunlight on your body,
Mm.
to set your circadian rhythm, to set your hormonal production, to kind of signal to your body, like, we're waking up. This is how we evolved as humans for thousands of years. This electricity rich life has only been around for about 150. And then this like technology rich light, even less, so much less, right? So
Mm.
wake up and they turn on their LED lights the first thing in the morning and go on their phone. It's just not signaling the right things to our biology, unfortunately. And it's definitely spiking things like cortisol and things like that because,
Mm.
the lighting is not appropriate. But that's very influential on our microbiome. And also getting out during different times of the day, during different sun spectrums, like when we have UVB light, UVA light, and then we have some blue light mixed in there, but it's never alone. It's always around other light spectrums. And the red and infrared light is always there to protect us as well. So things like that, even the sound influences our microbiome, right? Whether you're sitting in your kitchen and all you hear is the fridge just buzzing there, it's not natural to us to hear that in the background versus when you go outside and you hear the birds and you hear all the natural sounds of the trees swishing. I mean,
Mhm.
this is very soothing to us and it influences our bacteria greatly. About that first with my families. And it sounds a little bit like, what? Like, what are you talking about? But is the life energy? It's so important.
Mhm.
Then, environmental factors. We come into contact with about 80,000 different chemicals every single day.
Mm.
And some homes have a little bit less because if you're conscious about that, but unfortunately, a lot of it is out of our control. So making
Mm.
sure you are drinking good quality water that's well filtered and mineralized and maybe even structured, making sure you
Mhm.
have quality air in your home. That's important. And sometimes it's not even about buying air filters that are really expensive. You can even just air your house out if you open your windows once or twice a day. I mean, that's incredible for the
Mhm.
airflow in the home, right? The
And
the air
houseplant.
outside is much cleaner than the air inside. So we want to make sure that's in the house. Then taking out the junk food if we can, because ultra processed foods, they're not helping anybody.
No.
So all these chemicals and
Correct.
sugars and carbs and
Mhm.
mismatch and unnatural things, unfortunately, and sometimes it's impossible at first because kids are eating only five foods, kind of like your sister was for a little while, right? So that happens to a lot of kids. And now kids with disabilities, we have
Mm.
more and more kids that are chronically ill or have things like autism, right? So these kids are more prone to developing picky eating tendencies.
Mm.
So
Mhm.
it's a real issue. So for kids like that, I will always target light first and slowly shift the diet, right? But that's important as
Mhm.
well. Also for our guts, it's animal based foods are really important because they're
Mm.
so rich in vitamins and minerals. So I love
Mhm.
to recommend things like meat stock and things like that just to add into different things because they're feeding the good and they're getting rid of the bad guys.
Mm. Mhm.
So that I'm a big fan of because vegetables, I mean, they have many different benefits, but they also have a lot of toxins. So
Yes.
Mhm.
it's important to know where they are on the spectrum because if we're eating spinach smoothies every single day, we're not going to help our microbiome in any way, shape, or form, unfortunately. So that's something to be mindful of, knowing where they are. Sometimes we have to take out the ones that are really high in oxalates or the ones that are really high in lectins and things like that because they can drive inflammation. So
Mhm.
there's a lot of things to consider, but I really do think that's really important and also nervous system regulation for our gut.
Mhm.
Super important, right? So working on the vagus nerve, which is the big communication highway between the gut and the brain,
Mhm.
that's really important, stimulating it in ways that make us feel good. There's many different things you can do. And everything we have already mentioned will help with the vagus nerve when it comes to the light environment and even the foods and breathing properly. So there really are a lot of things you can do, even outside of food, to stimulate our gut health. That was a lot, so I'm sorry. I hope
Right.
that answered
No,
your
that is
It's great information.
absolutely great information because it's tying it into that holistic thing that it isn't just
Mhm.
one thing.
Yeah.
You can do other things even if like you're not going to win the battle on the vegetable. You can do so many other things that set up
Yes.
the positivity around mealtime and foods. And I think often if we stop pushing against it, that the children eventually will become like kind of naturally more inquisitive and opening up as they make the linkage of, I eat this, it makes me feel better.
Mm.
Yes.
I eat this, it makes me feel bad. And
Mm.
then over time, if it's not that negative battle of like you get stubbornness in the way, I think
Yes.
that is a small thing that we can do outside of maybe some things we can't control is only focusing on those things that we have
Yeah.
control over and giving children a little bit of agency. I loved how you
Yes.
talked about the tapas table of all
Mhm.
of the little foods and letting children pick what they want because they have done so much research over the course of a week. A child will eat all of the things that they need to stay healthy if given the opportunity
Mm.
to kind of pick at the different foods that they really, their body gives them the right signals on what to do.
You know, they don't like children, they don't have a whole lot of control in their lives. Like everything is
Yeah.
managed for them. You know, you wake up at this time, you go to school at this time, then you go to this activity, and then you come home and you eat dinner and then you go to bed or whatever. And I think that with food, it's one of the areas or one of the only areas in their lives that they have some choice, like they're
Mhm.
able to have some control. So I think
Absolutely.
that has been like an interesting learning experience for me, just watching like how the children interact with food and like what they like, what they choose, what they don't want. I haven't been with them for a long time, but like I've seen, you know, some progression as I've been with them. Like I've started making kombucha and sourdough bread and like, you know, they really love those things, and the kombucha that I make, they drink it faster than I can even make
It
it, and
is so good.
it's so
Yeah.
cute. Because if they run out, they're like, "Lord, when is the kombucha gonna be ready?" Because they love it so much, and it's so cute to like see that they're choosing something that like is a much healthier option than, you know, some like a
Oh,
soda or something like
yeah,
that. So,
definitely. Yeah,
yeah.
fermented foods can be really good. Yeah, and I think you're right, spot on. I think kids want control. They crave that, and this is one of the ways that they can actually have control is over what they put in their body, and as they
Mm,
should be able to control. So I agree with you. Yeah. So,
yeah.
but knowing that, you can always get creative around like,
Yeah.
how do I make him feel like he's in total control, but I'm still controlling in a
Yeah.
way that, like, I'm making food that's healthy. So maybe you can
Mm,
even help him, have him, meal prep with you, kind of like,
yeah.
talk about, okay, this is what I'm planning for next week. What do you think? Like,
Mm,
what are we gonna make on Monday? Should I make this? Should I make that? Things like
yeah.
that can get him excited because of his age.
Yeah,
Mm.
I do like to, especially the youngest one, I like to
Mhm.
ask him because he kind of is like the other two older children. They have their like somewhat picky tendencies, but the youngest one definitely is kind of the determining factor of, you know.
Mhm.
So I like to get him involved, and I'll be like, what do you think I should make for dinner tomorrow? Like, what would you like?
Yeah,
And
that's great.
so
That's great.
that definitely, I think he does get a lot more excited
Yes,
when it's like something that he
he
had a
chose.
say in
Yeah,
for the next day or something.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's great.
So thank you so much for all this information, Lena. And
Yeah.
where, if someone is interested in learning more about you and reaching out to you and maybe getting some help in what you do, maybe someone has really decided they really need a little bit of a third party influence in their battle. Where does one reach out and connect with you?
Yes. Well, I have a website. It's lenalivinsky.com. So there are a lot of resources there and ways to connect with me right there. I'm also most active on Instagram at lena.livinsky. If you prefer, you can also send me a DM there. Yeah. So, and I also have a podcast. It's called the Live and Sky podcast. And I talk about picky eating quite often there as well. So that can also be another resource.
Right. Well, we will add those links into the show notes for sure so people can definitely get a hold of you. So
Great.
thank
Thank you
you
so much.
very much for
Thank
this
you so
conversation.
much.
And now one of my favorite parts of the whole podcast, the kitchen showdown. This week, we have red cabbage. Lauren sent me a ricotta toast with a red cabbage braise, and I sent her a red cabbage veggie burger. Stay tuned to see how it turned out, and you decide who wins this food battle. Welcome to the kitchen. So this week's challenge is red cabbage, and Lauren sent me a recipe with a red cabbage that is braised and ricotta toast. And so very simple recipe to make. Has apples and cabbage, red cabbage in it, which is an absolute favorite dish of mine. But this takes it to a different level, and that you actually kind of turn it into what's a little bit like a appetizer. And Stefan just ate some, and he actually said that he could turn into a vegetarian with that particular thing. So I haven't tried it yet. Going to give it a bite right now. We start by cutting up the cabbage and all the other ingredients. And then after you get all of that done, you're going to heat your pan and sweat your onions or leeks, whichever you prefer to use. After that is done, add in the cabbage and the remaining ingredients. And I'll let that simmer a little bit and cook down. After you've done all of that, and of course you can do some other things while this is cooking, go ahead and add the aromatics in there as well. Put a lid on that and let it go and steep for a while. It takes about 35-45 minutes to cook. You really want to make sure that you have a nice tight fitting lid on there. Give that a stir and let that all cook together. This can be done the day ahead and let it cool down in the fridge. To make the spread, the ricotta spread for the toast, and start by grating some lemon peel. Then go ahead and get the herbs in there and all the remaining ingredients. I'm using a small little processor that goes with kind of my immersion blender. You could use a blender as well, or a larger food processor would also work. So once you add all of the ingredients in there, go ahead and whir it all about and get it all mixed together. I did actually find that this was a pretty thick, because I used a very nice thick ricotta cheese, which took a little bit more work to get it to come together. And I ended up actually adding a little bit of lemon juice in there, just to pop the flavor of lemon, brighten it up, but also to smooth that out a little bit and allow it to whir together. But once that's all whirred together, you are then ready to make your dish. So you start with toasted sourdough bread, then add in a little dollop of the ricotta cheese mixture, spread that on there, top that with that cooked cabbage, and then finally going to drizzle it with a little bit of aceto balsamic vinegar. Don't skimp on this step. Really get the good balsamic vinegar with a nice robust flavor. The fresh lemon in the ricotta with the thyme, really good, actually brightens the flavor. So I made the cabbage yesterday and actually cooled it in the fridge. And so I actually heated it back up just ever so slightly to make this. And I actually like it a little bit more room temperature. I think this would be a perfect appetizer and actually a great kind of hot summer day kind of appetizer as well. So I hope you guys give this one a try. Absolutely great job, Lauren. This is a simple, easy dish. Throw it together for a lunch or even as a side, or as Stefan said, I could make a whole meal, and I'm sure he's coming back for seconds after he walks the dog. I can't wait to see how my recipe turns out.
Welcome back to my kitchen. Today I'm going to be making my mom's black bean veggie burgers, so let's get started. The biggest area where what I did differed from my mom's recipe was, first things first, I chose to blend my black beans in my Vitamix as an additional binder for the burgers before I did anything else. So I set the black beans aside, and then I got started chopping the rest of my ingredients, the onion, cabbage, shredding the sweet potato. I also chose to use a Japanese sweet potato instead of a normal sweet potato because they have a bit higher starch content, and I was hoping that the starches would also help bind the burger together. Plus, I just really like the flavor of the Japanese sweet potato. So once I had all my ingredients chopped, I proceeded to sweat them in a pan until they wilted down for about 2 to 3 minutes. Then I added a quarter cup of water and covered them for an additional 5 minutes just to let everything really cook down well. And once that was done, I transferred everything to a bowl, and then I added the rest of my binder ingredients minus egg and black beans. So I mixed in mustard, breadcrumbs, oats, and other seasonings and let it sit for about 10 minutes before adding the egg and black bean, just so the egg wouldn't cook when it was added to the hot mixture. After I mixed in those last two ingredients, the egg and the black bean, I mixed everything together very well, covered it, poked a couple holes in the saran wrap, and then placed it in the fridge overnight. I was hopeful that this would help everything bind together really well and meld all the flavors together. And when I took it out of the fridge in the morning, I was super happy because it was staying together very well, which for me was a necessity because I do not have the option to just stick them in the oven. So I ended up cooking them in my cast iron pan, and this worked out very well. And on my second side of cooking, I decided to cover them with a lid just to help them steam themselves, and I think this really helped everything stay together and definitely helped the centers of the burger cook. So for the last minute or so of cooking, I took the lid off and just allowed everything to get crispy, and then flipped them back over again to crisp on the other side. And then after that, they were ready to be consumed, and I was super excited because they smelled so good. This is a recipe I would highly recommend to any vegetarians or vegans, but even people who are not vegetarian and vegan would enjoy this recipe. I can attest to that because I'm not someone who generally enjoys vegetarian substitutes for anything. You will not catch me eating a Beyond Burger or Beyond anything, really. But this, I was super impressed. The flavors really just punched you in the face. I mean, it was so flavorful and satisfying and does not leave you feeling like you're missing out on anything if you're somebody who eats meat and is eating a vegetable instead. So I really hope that you guys give this recipe a shot because I promise you, you will not be disappointed and you will be getting all your veggies and nutrients in there. So give my mom's red cabbage veggie burger a try, and please give my balsamic braised red cabbage ricotta toast a try, and let us know which one you think won this week's recipe battle, and we'll see you in the next one. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and happy cooking.
Well, this episode is fully baked. Remember, don't stress over perfection.
Cooking and life can be messy, but that's where the magic happens. Inspiration can come from even the worst of kitchen mess ups.
Yeah, like how the chocolate chip cookie was born.
And the potato chip. Sometimes you gotta get messy to get clean.
Thanks for joining us in the kitchen. Subscribe so you don't miss the next food fight episode. So come hungry and maybe a little argumentative because next week things are getting flaky here on Too Many Cooks in the Kitchen.
We'll see you next time. Don't forget to check us out on Instagram at 2 Cooks Podcast. That's 2 Cooks Podcast. And in our link tree, you can find all the recipes we talk about to make them yourself. And don't forget to tag us and share your thoughts. Happy cooking!
Bye!